Welcome to Overtime on Inferno, your weekly roundup of all the biggest stories in CSGO, faster than Sprout can undo the transactions they've already done. If you leave us a rating and review at the end of the episode, that would really help us. My name is Logan Ramhap. This is AZ Ask. Let's get into it. I got no angry emails in my inbox this week.
That's good.
Which is good, which means that nobody had anything to say about the format.
I got lots of angry emails, but they're absolutely nothing to do with this podcast.
nothing to do with nothing.
Just people just don't like me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I figured you probably get some of those. So we're gonna do the same thing this week. Bunch of rapid fire stories at the beginning. Then we're gonna do our main story at the end.
Yes, which makes sense.
The first thing we were going to talk about is Device was on HLTV confirmed this last week. He spoke a lot of things about it.
Other podcasts are available, including ours.
Other podcasts are definitely available. He said a lot of things. There was a really good TLDR on Reddit about this. Some guy just wrote it up in bullet points, and we're going to go through them really quickly. It shouldn't be anything huge and new and game breaking, but there is some interesting stuff in here to talk about. He does not regret joining NIP. That tracks. He's had random panic attacks in the middle of the night for the majority of the year, and at IEM Winter, his body shut down. He wishes he could have finished the tournament, but he and professionals thought it was best not to finish the tournament, which does track with what we heard of. He was having medical issues. Continues later somewhere in here that says he's been like having IBS or something like that. It's somewhere in here.
Yeah, I think you just scrolled past it.
I think I did too. Yeah, he had IBS at Sydney 2018. There was nothing he could do about it, and everything fucking sucked. Playing with Danish players helped to reignite his spark for the game when it was dying at the end of the Astralis era, which that tracks. This is my favorite one here. Device confirms he had no talks or interest in Astralis when the rumors first were leaked. Confirms the org could have had interest in him to rejoin, and that could have possibly sparked the false earlier reports.
I don't believe that. I'm not going to say it like I just don't believe that that's true.
I want it to be true that somebody in the CSGO news media saying Device should go back to Astralis forced Astralis to go, you know what? We did have that Device guy. Maybe he's actually pretty good at this game. We should get him back.
It seems what he's suggesting is that Astralis wanted him, and so a report came out that he wanted to go back. But I just don't believe that that's true. I just don't believe that that's true. I mean, you can believe what you want. I don't think that's true.
Says that coming back to NIP, quote, wasn't in the cards, which almost certainly meant that NIP didn't want him to come back, not that he didn't want to go back to NIP.
Well,
it's probably.
I think that's an implication made entirely by the person writing this up. I think you can take that either way.
I think it's probably
go back to NIP is not on the cards because you don't want to. Like the implication, there is no implication. Well, there is an implication, but it doesn't go either way.
So I watched the clip of this. And the way that he said it made it sound like it was more on the org, but as everything in the world, there's two sides to everything, and it's more somewhere in between. There's a whole bit about Hunden here, which is fantastic because if you don't remember, this podcast has been the number one Hunden tracker in the world. First episode about Hunden. 2.5 years later, still talking about Hunden. That basically Device had the Hunden bug used against him, but then said he believed his second chances, was open-minded.
He had a fucking second chance. He had a second chance. He had a third chance. He's on his about fucking 15th chance. Fuck this guy, dude.
And basically, the last bit I want to talk about here is when he left Astralis to go to NIP, he told Glaive that they should get Nikodas, which would have been a fantastic move at the time. You think it would have been worse than Farley or Lucky?
I think it would have been very similar. I don't think Nikodas is particularly good.
I think he's at least shown higher highs than that. than
Farley's also had high highs. It's just his flaw.
Okay, he's showed
in
higher
that,
highs on
like,
better teams.
I think both Lucky and Farley are better than they showed on Astralis, and it's the fact that they took Orpas and tried to make them into device that has made them look worse. Nikodos on Fnatic is not great, and is certainly not as good as what device was on Astralis, or even remotely close.
Yeah, Nikodas Copenhagen Flames is the best version of Nikodas.
Yeah, and when you look back at that Copenhagen Flames team, you look at it and go, well, wow, hang on, there's a lot of very, very good players on this team.
Speaking of former Copenhagen Flames talent, Sprout has benched refrezh and brought Zyphon back up from the bench.
Move makes no sense whatsoever.
This comes like 10 days after they benched Zyphon to let refrezh not have to IGL and bring in someone else. And then somewhere in between there, they said refrezh was actually going to keep IGLing. Or so. There's been like 4 moves in Sprout, and none of them made any sense.
This is complete fucking nonsense. Sprout had a very good 5. The one that did well at the the major.
Yeah,
that 5, lot of talent, and it's largely because their in-game leader was better than most in-game leaders as a fragger, maybe slightly worse than in-game leader, but you make up for that with firepower. You have 5 players who can actually play the game. They upgrade. Other than Slacks is pretty dog shit, but whatever. They swap Slacks out for Jello. You now have 5 players who can play the game. You might not have the same depth as some of the other teams because you've got refrezh during your leader. Fine. Then you kick Zyphon for no apparent reason. Like, I'm pretty sure they made Zyphon play shit roles and then kicked him because he had shit stats. Like, his stats went massively downhill. Kicked him and was like, yeah, we want refrezh to have good roles. I don't know why you want refrezh to have good roles. We've seen refrezh in good roles.
No, it wasn't refrezh. It wasn't refrezh getting good roles. It was moving refrezh off the IGL role.
Yeah, and bringing into good roles.
Bringing in an IGL.
Yeah, but the problem is that they took Zyphon off his positions to give refrezh some of them, even though we've seen refrezh in star roles. He isn't good enough at tier 1 to be a star, but he is overqualified as a support player, which is what he was originally. So they've just made their team worse to make the in-game leader happy, to then sign a worse player to in-game lead to make the team overall worse, realize that that's what they've done, and then gone, instead of just making refrezh go back to in-game leader, they've just kicked him and brought back Zyphon, and now they just need an in-game leader again. This doesn't make any sense. Why did you pick refrezh over Zyphon in the first place when you have now realized, like everyone else had already realized, that Zyphon is a better player than refrezh? And if you're going to have one of them in this role, it might as well be the one who's actually good enough to play it.
I hope that this whole thing ends with them just adding refrezh back and just a long, like a 2,000 word twit longer that just goes, yeah, we understand that we made a little bit too many moves here and we should have just stuck with what we had that was good already. And then, but in corporate
change would have been fine.
Speak,
it just should have been minus refrezh plus an in-game leader, instead of shifting 3 players around to make refrezh happy in a role that he isn't particularly good at. We've seen refrezh in star roles on Heroic, and he wasn't that good.
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
The problem is that Sprout has always been this ready to break into tier 1 org, right? They were always the second best team in Germany and stuff, and it felt like it was part of a management issue, right? They had Crimbo and Favin for maybe they didn't have Crimbo. They had Favin for Searson and Favin for so long, right?
Well, Searson might have been alternate attacks. I think he was alternate attacks, actually. They had Favin.
They had Favin for so long, and everyone went, this guy is the next guy, and you wondered why he was never getting moved. And looking at this, is I start questioning how the rest of the team atmosphere functions, and that maybe they can get good players, but they can't, once they get good players, they can't do anything with them.
But this is the roster that actually looks like it can break into tier 1. They've done what Sprout do, and they've found talent, and they've actually found really, really good talent. They've managed to keep hold of Laux even when he was wanted by other teams. They've managed to keep hold of. Didn't Astralis try and sign Zyphon, and they told him to fuck off?
Yeah, they told him.
And then they were like, actually, no, refrezh is better.
It was
just Astralis trying to sign refrezh. Maybe there's a hint there. I don't get it. Minus refrezh plus an in-game leader would have been fine, but the problem is there aren't many good in-game leaders. Certainly aren't many good in-game leaders who will be an upgrade, enough of an upgrade over refrezh as a leader to make up for the fact that they're not going to be as good individually. So refrezh's in-game leader was probably the max you were going to get out of that role.
I actually also think that not only is it like the best one that they could have gotten realistically, but Sprout is an international team that there's probably better IGLs that are from, I don't know, Czechoslovakia or Poland or something like that, right? But they speak Polish or Czech, and that's it, right? You have like it's the fact that refrezh can speak English on a team in which it's definitely a mixed team. And IGL at a relatively competent level.
Can you find, I can't think of any other in-game leaders that would be willing to join this team, would be an upgrade, and who speak English. There are very few. Maybe if you could convince Suhi, but then I don't even think Suhi would necessarily work on this team because he tends to be quite selfish as a player as well. You can see why, but he's quite selfish.
Bring Crystal out of his coaching
retirement. I knew
you
were going to say Crystal. I knew it was either Crystal or MSL anyway.
That is Crystal. If it was MSL coming from your mouth, Crystal from mine. We take a lot of pot shots at American Counter-Strike here. And no one has yelled at me yet that we haven't taken enough pot shots at other regions.
But other regions aren't as funny.
Yeah, except for this weekend. So there was a UK tournament in Counter-Strike. I'm going to let Elliot do most of the story because
I am Kettering. It's good Epic LAN. It's
Epic.
I've never been, but I know plenty of people who have. It's exactly what you'd expect out of a LAN inside. I don't know how to describe Kettering to somebody who's not from England. It's exactly as shit as the name Kettering would suggest.
It also comes up with a city in Ohio when you search it.
Well, yeah, because a lot of American cities are just named after English places.
Either way, LAN in Europe, pretty big LAN for UK as far as I'm aware. It's like
English Fragadelphia.
Okay, so
without any of the prestige.
Yeah, because there's no actually good teams there.
Essentially, yeah.
The problem is that even silver players or gold players know that when you start to defuse, you don't press other buttons.
Yeah.
And you definitely don't let go of the button to stand up and scream and shit talk to not get the defuse.
So what happened was a guy was defusing to win the map, stood up to shout your shit at the enemy team, and accidentally pressed his right arrow key, which was bound to something.
I think he played movement with arrow keys.
Oh, there you go. Oh, well, no, because does that take you off the bomb? I feel like if you press a movement key, it doesn't actually take you off the bomb.
I don't know. They showed.
I think he had it to switch. I can't remember what it. Basically, his right arrow key was bound to something that got him off the defuse. He accidentally pressed it while standing up, got off the defuse, and they lost the round and subsequently the map and the game. It was Late, I think his name is. Is it Late?
It was fantastic, and his perspective wasn't caught out on stream, but the other team, someone was streaming this game, and you just see the guy's face just go, oh, shit, we lost the round, to just what the fuck happened. And then you hear from the microphone in another room this guy screaming and shit talking, and then you see it happen. Great time.
Nice try, Fresh. Nice try.
Wait,
oh my god, he nearly got off it. Have you won it?
What can you say? There's nothing to say.
The show note is literally UKCS kekw.
Yeah, well, there's no NA teams in the EU RMR, is there? So
yeah, trust me, we're going to talk about NA in a second. But first, to France, of which Nakama, which if you haven't heard that name, it's because we probably haven't said that name.
It's because it's not worth knowing.
It's not worth knowing. All you need to know is the team that Smiths and Shocks made, because no one else wanted to have them play for them, as far as either of us is aware. So they made a team to make the major, but they've kicked half their team, including Smiths, who co-founded the team.
This is really similar to Imperial signing FNX Fur and Fallen, realizing that FNX is just dog shit and kicking him. Like, Smiths was bad when he was good. There's
Yep.
no way he's good when he's bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why would you ever think Smiths was going to work on this team? It made no sense whatsoever.
They kicked 2 people too. It wasn't just Smith, it was also Deus, who, if I remember correctly, is just like top the leaderboards and face it. And who would have ever guessed that just being top the leaderboard and face it means you were good?
Isn't he also like, it was meant to be Shock, Smiths, and 3 young players, and Deus was like 25?
Yeah, Deus is 25.
It's just like not even that young.
No one, the youngest person on the team is 17, but after that it's 21. Shocks is 30. Deus is 25. Smiths is like 73.
It made no sense.
Yeah,
it was the team made no sense from construction. The Smiths was never going to be good. Like, at least Shocks was good at some point. Like, we all know he's bad now. Nobody's going to debate that. But you can at least like cling on to the idea that you might get peak Shocks again if like everyone starts playing like they did in 2015 when nobody could aim. Like, maybe Shocks could be good again. But Smiths wasn't even good then. Like, how are you expecting him to be good now? I don't understand how they ever thought this was going to work. Whatever, doesn't matter.
One last bit for our rapid news segment thing that I'm going to chuck in at the end here. We're not going to do this every week, so don't expect it, because just realistically, we're not going to do it every week. But there's a clip of the week that we want to play. Producer Beef is going to put it in right after I finish giving you the setup for it.
Hi, Beef.
Hi, Beef. But basically, Group A happened in ESL Pro League. We're going to talk about it in further length in a minute. But all you need to know here is that IHC had to play Evil Geniuses in the 8th place decider match, which is the 3rd elimination, because remember, it's not single elimination, not double elimination, but three elimination. IHC had to play EG in the final decider match. Sponge interviewed Annihilation after the match, and
So
here's what Annihilation had to say.
I want to say to my fans, thank you for cheering us, and I hope we're gonna show a better result for next tournament.
But you got to win today, mate. Shouldn't you be happy?
Yeah, I'm happy, but it's EG.
Yeah. Oh.
So yeah, we've taken all of our pot shots at NA this week and our pot shots at at the UK. If you didn't catch
Annihilation's pot shot is so much better.
Yeah, just the fact that even at this point that Asian Counter-Strike is clowning on North American Counter-Strike is just like, everyone understands that EG is shit.
Like, I know IHC are like have been very impressive in the last few months, but 2 years. Imagine saying to somebody 2 years ago, Evil Geniuses, a team with Breezy and Automatic on it, are going to get mugged off by a Mongolian team saying, yeah, we won, but it's only EG. A Mongolian team. Like, Breezy is paid more than that entire team on his own and bottom fragged.
I guarantee 2 years ago, you could have only told me one Mongolian player.
Yeah.
And it's Hobbit. No, it's not even. Wait, no, it's not Hobbit. There's someone else.
It's Urcast.
It's Urcast, yeah.
Or Machine Gun. There was Machine Gun on Splice.
But basically, there's no player. Like, you couldn't have told
there
me
was
more
no
than
players.
1 or 2 players.
Yeah. They got mugged off by a Mongolian team who were just taking the piss out of them live on broadcast, by the way. On official broadcast, a Mongolian player mugged them off.
The best part about that clip, though, is not Annihilation saying that. It's Sponge going, yeah, and then he realizes what Annihilation said.
So H agrees, and he's like, "Oh wait, no, I'm not really supposed to agree with that."
Yeah, absolute banger. All right, let's get into the main story of the week, which is ESL Pro League, as it will be this week, next week, and the week after.
We'll start with IHC versus EG. That's the first game we're going to recap.
Yeah,
EG is so dog shit. You know, like I said, like if they took a map in each series, that would be considered a success. They barely even came close.
No, they didn't do that. They took one map across 3 series.
They barely came close to taking a map.
All right, let me give the quick rundown of what happened in Group A, and then we'll pick and choose what we want to talk about, and then we'll talk about Group B. Group A, teams that got out in order of winning is Cloud9 in upper bracket final win, Outsiders in upper bracket final loss, G2 in lower finals win, and Fnatic in third elimination qualifier win. Because of course. So teams that from this group that did not make it is IHC, MIBR, Evil Geniuses, and Eternal Fire.
Yeah, I mean, I said Eternal Fire would be better than you thought they were going to be, and I think they proved that.
Yeah,
I think Eternal Fire were quite impressive.
Yeah, so place wise, it's what, C9, then Outsiders, then G2, then Fnatic. I think I ranked Fnatic a little bit closer to where they ended up.
I thought they were going to be bad. They weren't good, but they weren't bad.
They were, I think both of us were a little too high on IHC coming into this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they were all right. I mean, who did they lose to?
They lost to MIBR.
The MIBR loss is quite. Yeah, that's quite.
They lost to
worrying,
MIBR, Outsiders, and then Fnatic. They beat EG 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, everyone loses to Outsiders here and there. Like,
I thought you were going to say everyone loses a map to EG, and I was going to say no.
No, everyone loses to Outsiders here and there.
Yeah,
that's fine.
But this group kind of went exactly as if you looked at the rankings and went, who are the top teams here?
Sort of, but then you probably wouldn't have had, Cloud9 beating G2. That was huge.
Yeah.
Shiro, by the way, unbelievable in the group. I mean, he's always unbelievable in group stages. That's not really the worry with him. But even so, the numbers he was putting up.
Yeah, I was to say, if you need numbers,
he was at I think he had two series in a row with a 1.8 rating plus.
Yeah, over 2 maps against G2, Vertigo and Inferno, he posted a 1.83.
Yeah,
and then which is just ridiculous. It was he put a lower rating against EG than he did against G2.
In fairness against EG, he only had about 40 rounds to do it.
Yeah.
I think it was a 41 round series.
Yeah, it was not a very
3-round series or something. It was like 16-5, 16-4 or something.
Yeah, it was 41 rounds. It was not very long.
Yeah, it's actually a 41 round series.
That's less rounds than I play in a normal Face-It match.
That's embarrassing. 41 round series. EG, what are you doing?
The answer is we may never know.
41 rounds, and then they got 9 rounds in a series.
So yeah, this group ended, I'd say, roughly about where we were before. We'll see where these teams end up in towards the playoff standings, but Cloud9 will be 1, Outsiders will be 2, G2 will be 3, and Fnatic will be 4 in terms of the way the single elimination playoff bracket goes, because of course we go triple elimination to single elimination. That makes sense.
But then the teams do well get seeded higher, don't they?
There's draws that'll happen and stuff. So let's move on to Group B. Group B has already started. Obviously, it's Wednesdays. We're recording this at 12:30 in the afternoon. So the big complexity game.
UK team, half 5 UK time, half 6 Central European time.
Yes, that. The big complexity game is heading into map 3 right now as we speak. But we do have the result of the heroic Movistar game, which, to no one's surprise, was heroic.
Heroic were taking the piss in that game. There's a clip where they're 12-1 up on the T side of Overpass, and they rush B with P90s and get a triple entry.
I love it.
And then I think they bought 5 negevs in the last round as well on the
Fantastic.
T side. They were properly taking the piss out.
So I want to do the power rankings again for this group. I did not do them ahead of time, so I'm going to do them very quickly live here. Heroic number 1, Furia number 2, Complexity 3, Mouse 4. No, Mouse 4, Big 5, and then we have Drop, and then it's Imperial, Saw, Movistar.
I'd put Saw over Imperial.
Those bottom 3
are
I
know it doesn't matter.
To me.
I know it doesn't matter, but I would put Saw over Imperial. And we'll probably see that game because they are going to play each other. Assuming Furia beat Imperial and Mouse beat Saw, we will see Saw versus Imperial.
Yeah, this group isn't stacked in the standard term of the top 5 teams in the world, all of them are here because weird ranking shit has happened. This group just has a lot of solid teams. Heroic.
Heroic's
really good, but and then Furia's a really solid team. Mouse is a really solid team. Big is a team.
There are a lot of words I would use to describe Furia and Mouse. None of them are solid. They are as liquid as a team to get. Furia are pure liquid. That on any given day they could be amazing or complete dog shit. And the same with Mouse. They are not solid in any sense of the word. Big, you could maybe argue are solid because they tend to be quite consistent. They're just consistently fine. Where Complexity, Furia, Mouse are all a question mark on any given day. I think Complexity will probably get out of this group, and I think it will probably be over big. But it could be Mouse. Like Mouse can just quite easily shit the bed. They do all the time.
The problem is, I see Heroic coming out in first place. Like I don't think there's a real question there.
Who's beating Heroic in this group?
But who's going against Heroic in the winners final? I don't know. Who's playing in the losers final? I don't know. It's one of the four other teams.
It's most likely Furia versus Mouse in the other upper bracket semi-final. And I cannot tell you who's going to win that game. Put a gun to my head and tell me who's going to win, and ask me who's going to win that game. I would say shoot me. I've got no idea. Absolutely no idea. It could be a 2-0 either way, and I just shook my shoulders and go, yeah, obviously. Look, what are you supposed to think?
Say it's a 2-0. You could say it's a 90-round 3-map slugfest, right? Like, I would believe you either way.
I think I would go... Oh, God. No, I actually don't. I've got no idea. I was going to say Mouse, but then Keiosarato is quite obviously the best player in the server, and it's hard to suggest that he won't win. But then Art will just troll the match.
I want to lean towards Furia, but like I don't know. The problem is, like,
Furia might lose to Imperial. I have no fucking idea.
We haven't seen either of these teams play like an official in like 2 months. Like straight up, we haven't seen them play in a while. So
they're completely mad. They don't make any sense.
So I have no fucking clue, man. Like nothing. I have no clue. Teams that should not make anything here. Movistar
are awful. Absolutely, like, it's a shame. With some Pius, they are a threat. With Martinez, they are awful. They are absolute garbage tier. I'm sorry, they are just rubbish now. It's really sad.
It was the Sun Pius show before, and you like go, oh no, but they've got Mopaz and Davi G but no,
Davi G's rubbish. They had Deaths. He was bad as well. It was like Mopaz could play a bit. Alex could play a bit.
The thing is, they could play around Sun Pius the way that Sun Pius worked. They were really good role players around Sun Pius, but Martinez is not Sun Pius, so the rest of the team gets a nerf.
It's a really good name for the guy who the entire team orbits around.
Sun Pius, yeah.
Yeah, like every time I think about like Movistar, I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's so easy to write about because
he's the sun god.
They had the sun in the middle and everyone else just sort of like whirled around him. Like they were a solar system. And you remove the star from that, what do you have? A lot of very, very cold fucking planets.
Big and Complexity. As you talked about, Big will be extremely like normal at this event because they're big.
Yeah,
except for the fact that I watched.
Kind of fun.
Here's the thing: I watched Big this morning, and they looked nothing like Big.
Yeah, because they've. I mean, Favin's barely played for them the last few months, and Hyped is completely new. He looks kind of fun, Hyped.
They brought in like
some fun stuff going on with him.
They've quietly just brought in like 3 players that have completely changed how this team plays.
Do you know what's interesting is you're currently hovering over the game and rating back based on past 3 months, and Tabson is the lowest. When has that ever happened before with Big?
I think Hyped and Crimbo has low sample size, and Hyped has his academy ratings.
Oh yeah, no, of course, but it's still like I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't think I've ever seen Tabson be the lowest rated player on Big. Maybe,
which is a good thing.
Maybe this is the new era of Big where Tabson, it isn't built around Tabson and they actually have some other talent. Maybe Big are interesting for the first time in about 3 years. Who knows?
Possible. Speaking of teams that are not built around their IGLs, Complexity, definitely not built around JT, but built around Grim, Halzerk, Fang, Floppy, just literally everyone but JT.
It seemed to depend map to map. Like Grim is their point man on Inferno, for example. Floppy's their point man on Ancient. There is a map that Halzerk's really good at.
It's Overpass.
Is it Overpass? There you go. Yeah, I should have guessed. It's an Orthus map. but like they have 3 different players they can play off of, and it seems to depend map to map, which is kind of interesting. But also it means that if one of them's not having the best series, you might just lose a map that you're normally good at.
Yeah. I mean, this match is close, and honestly, I'm happy right now to see a second North American team have close matches against a European team. Even though they
finally look good.
Yeah, it's
even if they lose,
lovely.
they look good.
Yeah, they've looked good this game. It's literally 3-3, 1 map to each right now. Like, great time.
And even if they lose, they'll be playing Movistar Riders, and they'll just beat 6 shades of shit out of them anyway.
Yeah, really. FURIA and Imperial, both of us ranked FURIA decently high because they're one of the better teams here. And I don't rank Imperial very high because Fallen is still on this team.
You mean Fallen, their highest rated player the past 3 months?
Yes. Do I need to say
because
more?
He's offering against tier 14.
Do I need to say more words about FURIA and Imperial other than kekw is just a top 10 player in the world?
Yeah, kekw is phenomenal. But then, like, I'm torn. I'm not sure this game is actually that one-sided because
it's not, because FURIA is going to
forget who's on. Like, Imperial seem to just keep buying good players. Like, okay, they put them with Fallen, so it's, whatever. But Cello and Jota are both really good.
Yep.
And Cello, I fucking love Cello. I think he's seriously good. I think Cello, Jota, kekw, Yuri is probably closer than people think it is. And then Fallen versus Safe is not as one-sided either, because Safe on this team is kind of mediocre, and then it's like, does Art run it down more often than Imperial do? Probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like FURIA has been more consistent in the last couple of months than Imperial has been against top tier teams.
FURIA are not more consistent.
Actually,
than
that's
anything.
A good point. Imperial has been more consistent at losing against top tier teams than FURIA
FURIA
has been.
About as consistent as diarrhea.
Yeah.
They make no sense. They could quite easily lose this game. I think it's actually could be a bit of a banging game because Imperial could easily win this. Honestly,
my mental does not allow for Imperial to win against FURIA.
They honestly could win it.
I know, but like my mental doesn't allow it. Saw and Mouse. I want to talk about Saw for a second because you may be wondering, where did Saw come from? And the answer is they're just always at Pro League from Portugal. Yeah. They're great.
Well, it was the other Portuguese team. Name escapes me. Who qualified for Pro League from conference and then had. So then some of their players got nicked by Saw, and then Saw then qualified. FTW was the other team. FTW qualified. They had like a miracle run at conference to qualify for Pro League.
Yep.
And then some of their players got nabbed by Saw. And then Saw have then qualified for Pro League. It's Ujerks and Story, or I can't remember. There's 2 of them that used to be on FTW when they qualified. And yeah, so like there's often a Portuguese team there because they tend to be a little bit underrated by the general public because they do tend to dominate in the sort of tier 3 scene and make it to these sort of events. But obviously they rarely beat genuinely good teams, so people don't really think about them. But they're not a horrible team, Saw, at all.
Yeah, this is actually the game I'm most scared about. It's not the FURIA Imperial one. It's the
Mouse will beat Saw. Mouse will beat Saw, but Saw aren't completely awful. Mouse are a bit more consistent than FURIA. They're a little bit better because Frozen does the same thing every round. Exertion does the same thing every round. Like they do have some structure, whereas FURIA play totally off vibes.
The vibes are good, man. The
vibes are good, FURIA are good. It's just the vibes aren't always good. It's the nature of vibes.
This is the nature of vibes. So yeah, banging weekend of Counter-Strike then. The RMRs will begin in about a month. Just future programming. We'll be having an OS expert come on in 2 weeks, in a little bit,
3
in a
weeks,
couple
I believe.
weeks, 3 weeks. We'll have an OS expert come on to give us the lowdown of OS before the RMRs head off in Asia. We're going to have an NA expert come around in the next 2-ish weeks, 3-ish weeks.
Expert might be a stretch.
Yeah, it's a good point. Come around to talk about North America a little bit more in depth than I do before we hit the NA RMRs. We have another guest coming on in the next couple of weeks, which has nothing to do with the RMRs. And then we're also looking to get someone in from Europe for the European RMRs, and I think someone from South America. Basically, we have a lot of guests coming up with a lot of information about the RMRs. That way you have one place that you're very up to date with. So that way you know exactly what's going to happen in the RMRs, and you can boast to your friends that you knew Detonate was going to be complexity in the NA RMR.
Sure.
They won't, but you can.
But now you know that.
You could flex that you knew who Detonate was, I guess. But until that point, thanks for listening, watching, etc. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at LoganRamhap, at ReadTLDR, and at AZEsk. We will be back again next week.